The detective said missing kids usually come home. What happens when they don't?
Based on a true story.
Police looking for John Gacy.
We discovered bodies. By the looks of it, they're younger men.
The things he did to those kids. He's sick.
The system failed these families.
Devil in Disguise, John Wayne Gacy. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Do you know how many there are?
Up to you to find out.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, April 17th, 2023. On the show today, news, listener questions, a new Universal Food Survey. Then in our main segment, Jim gives us the history of Universal Orlando's Sinbad attraction. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says that being abducted by aliens just might be the vacation he needs right now. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
As long as they don't get handsy. Having just spent time on the Galactic Star Cruiser, love the view.
Yeah.
Just don't need the probing.
You know, words to live by, Jim. Words to live by.
There we go.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Thanks to new subscribers Thomas Lick, Mavia330, Scott Rasheko, and Seth Johnson. And longtime subscribers PC Lehman, Sue Coppola, hey Sue, Long Librarian, Jim, I think that's a new Marvel superhero, and Cone Frog, also Jim, sidekick. Jim, these are the Universal team members responsible for selling the stage equipment at the soon-to-close Poseidon's Fury at Islands of Adventure. So if you're in the market for lasers, water cannons, or gently used flamethrowers with free shipping, please get in touch. True story.
Okay.
We'll talk more about that in a second.
We will.
But Jim, on to the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish Podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at storybookdestinations.com. All right, Jim, some quick news. Breakfast returns to the Garden Grill in Epcot on June 14th. So we get characters and waffles. That's fantastic. Also, I don't know if you were watching the Star Wars Celebration out of London this week. Did you see that? Disney announced that Star Tours is going to be getting new video in 2024.
Yes, and if you're a fan of Grogu, there's going to be a reason to go slide back over to Star Tours.
So it looks like we're going to get some new scenes there. I think everyone expects Mandalorian and Grogu. Jim, any truth to the rumor that the current name of the ride, which is Star Tours 2, The Adventures Continue, will be changed to Star Tours 3, Electric Boogaloo? No? Also, Jim, speaking of Star Tours, I heard this wacky rumor for Disneyland, and that's that if Disneyland ever gets an Avatar ride, it'll use the Star Tours ride vehicles as simulators.
Okay.
It wouldn't be an exact clone.
Do you think of Anaheim as it's the opposite of Orlando? They do not have the blessing of size. So it's just, especially since Avatar seems to be headed to Tomorrowland. You know, you have to make use of the space that's available there. And I'm hearing initial Avatar going into the old Carousel of Progress theater go-round building. But should they decide to expand the footprint outward, Star Wars or the Star Tours simulator building could get repurposed.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. All right, Jim, one more bit of news. So on last week's show, we talked about the February 8th contract between the Reedy Creek Improvement District and Disney. As you all know, many of our listeners are lawyers. Here is a representative comment, and I'm excluding everyone's names on it. What I found most interesting is how much time was obviously put into drafting the severability clause. This wasn't your ordinary clause that is seen in most contracts. Most of those only call for the severability component, not for the next closest enforceable addition to the contract. That was great draftsmanship. Courts and judges aren't huge fans necessarily of the closest additional concept because that requires some speculation and guesswork and can itself lead to further legal challenges on enforceability. But at the end of the day, great provision. Also, shout out to listener Matt McCann, who was apparently the one who tipped off NPR about our coverage of the Reedy Creek Improvement District meeting. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks.
Also, Jim, this week, I don't know if you noticed this, but the governor proposed adding tolls and hotel taxes to Reedy Creek.
Yeah.
He said, quote, we're going to look at things like taxes on the hotels. We're going to look at things like tolls on the roads, he said, adding the state would also look to develop property it owns near Disney. However, Jim, as our legal friends have pointed out, the development contract that exists now between Reedy Creek and Disney restricts what the district can develop on that property. And the agreement also anticipates that the new board would try something like this and specifically prohibits it against Disney also agrees. So there's a future laws regulations section in the severability clause that again says the next closest legal thing to what's in this document has to be done after that law is passed. I mean, it really was future thinking.
Oh, God,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. In terms of toll roads, our lawyer friends point out this. If you read Florida Statute 338-165-1, it says that any tolls collected on a road first go to repay the bonds that finance the road. Mm-hmm. And since those are Disney bonds, the state would be adding fees to tourists and residents in order to pay off Disney's bonds. So it seems the governor is threatening to raise tolls to give money to Disney. Then, once those bonds are paid off, Florida Statute 338-165-1 says that the tolls go to pay for operation, maintenance, and improvement of those roads. Again, I'm not sure how this is a threat because Disney already pays for those without tolls. And then once all of that is paid for, Florida Statute 338-165-2 says that the money goes to the county to pay for its roads. That would be mostly Orange County, Florida, except for the roads around the All-Star Resorts, which are in Osceola County. And as an Osceola County taxpayer, I would be absolutely fine with that. The other thing that complicates this, Jim, is what the Florida legislature did when it revamped the Reedy Creek Improvement District. So when it did that, buried in the text, in Section 9 specifically, it gives the district special authority around roads, bridges, and so on. So the district's roads, Disney donated those to the state years ago. Section 9, which is titled Authority of the District with respect to roads, bridges, street sliding, etc., specifically gives Reedy Creek the power of a special road district in Florida and also the power of a special road and bridges district in Florida, which gives them the power to own, acquire, open, extend, close, vacate, abandon, construct, reconstruct, replace, expand, yada, yada, yada. All kinds of roads in the district. The other interesting thing that the old Reedy Creek board did right before they got switched over was to make public an assessment of the condition of its roads and bridges right before the handover. And they also described the methodology used for the assessment. Did you see this? It was in the February 8th meeting minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
It basically says, for the last 5 years, we've looked at our roads and we've assessed them such that around 70% of them are in excellent condition, 23-ish% of them are in acceptable condition, and like 7% are in poor condition. So we'll work on that 7%.
I don't know if you've been following the latest. They're talking about trying to claw back authority, the Tourism Oversight Board. But have you been following the torrential rains that flooded Fort Lauderdale?
Fort Lauderdale, yeah, closed the airport.
Okay, and the mayor of Fort Lauderdale was on television earlier today and was talking about that, yes, we're dealing with this flooding and more raining is coming. No, we haven't heard from the governor yet. That's because he's still on his book tour. Oof. I get from their side of the fence, there's what they're saying, but there's also what they're doing, and the visuals ain't helping, Len.
Also, even if it wasn't on a book tour, if you're still fighting with Disney, probably not the thing that people in Broward County want right now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But I think the assessment in the handover document around the percentage of roadways in good condition is sort of like a stake in the ground that says, we know you guys are taking over the roads. Here's how good they were when we gave them to you. Good luck.
Oh, God, wouldn't that be the cherry on the sundae that, with these folks in charge, the roads around Disney World deteriorate?
And I mention this because, like, I recently drove from Orlando, where I live, to Miami on the Turnpike.
Yep.
And one of the things that I realized on the Turnpike was there were sections of the Turnpike in which you could not go the posted speed limit because the roads were both narrow and not well enough maintained to be able to go that fast. So we all know, like in some states like South Carolina, where, North Carolina going into South Carolina is a 4-lane part of I-95. And then it constricts down to 2 lanes in South Carolina. Then it expands out to like 6 lanes. It's like the heavens opening up once you get to Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But while you're in South Carolina, and again, I've driven this section of road dozens of times. While you're in South Carolina, there might as well not be a speed limit because the roads are so poorly maintained and so many trucks are on the road. There's no possible way you could go over 55 miles an hour on an average basis all the way through South Carolina. It's just not possible. So the speed limit could be 90, for all they care. And it's the same thing on the turnpike. It's like, you could put whatever speed limit you want on the turnpike in Florida, but the roads in some parts of it aren't in good enough shape to support whatever we want. And I think that's why Disney did this, actually.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. So.
All right, on to surveys. Jim, our friend Nikki sent in a new Universal Orlando survey about dining options in the parks and City Walk. Among the interesting questions were these. Were there any foods that you expected to find but could not find? So Nikki wrote in that she expected more variety around beyond burgers, hot dogs, and fries at quick service places, and that other than the Harry Potter lands, it was tough to find that variety. So that's a fair point, actually. I agree with that. And I'm not sure whether the next question in the survey was based on Nikki's response, but the next question was this. What other kinds of foods did you expect to find in the park? And so Nikki suggested things like wraps, sushis, creative fresh salads, and more plant-based options, plus more ethnic-inspired options. And here's why I mentioned the ethnic-inspired things. I was talking about this to Laurel. We were walking around, one night, and the question I asked is this: is what we commonly know as like Mexican, Italian, and Chinese food now so ingrained in American culture that nobody considers it ethnic? Like, and the example I give is this: like the second best pizza I get in New York has dough handmade by a Salvadoran guy and is topped with sauce made by a grandmother from Honduras. Like nothing in that entire transaction has been within 1,000 miles of Italy, right? There is no way that pizza is Italian, right? But I would say, right, that because of the people and the process involved that get that pizza to me, it makes that pizza slice quintessentially American. Like it is the melting pot of food, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's what I find so bizarre sometimes about the age we live in now, where America used to be all about the immigrant story and, coming here and making good. And the whole notion now that, let's hurry up and build that wall. That's, well, how the hell are they going to throw the pizza over it?
But what about the tacos?
There we go.
Have we not considered the tacos? Yeah. So it's funny because on the other hand, I was telling Laurel, we were walking by Columbus Circle a couple weeks ago when I was in New York, and I lamented to her that my favorite Peruvian sandwich place has moved out of Manhattan into Queens. And it seemed to me like, okay, Peruvian sandwich place is still somehow ethnic. Jim, you have no idea how good these sandwiches were. Like when I'm in New York, I don't go more than 2 blocks for anything, right? But I would go 9 blocks for this sandwich. It was that good. Yeah, Peruvian sandwich place. If you've never been to one, you don't know what you're missing.
Okay.
All right. So the next question on Nikki's survey was, what kinds of foods are you looking for in the parks, but gave specific examples. And they were low carb, organic, lower, no sugar, all of the, free from allergies like the soy, gluten, shellfish, nuts, so on. Various diets, so like vegan, paleo, keto. The interesting thing here was they mentioned kosher, but not halal. And the reason why I thought that was surprising was if you look at the growth in populations of people who consider themselves Jewish and people who consider themselves Muslim, the number of Muslims in the United States will surpass the number of people who consider themselves Jewish, like in the next 10 or 15 years.
Really?
So, yeah. So, I mean, they're within 1 million or so in terms of population right now, 1.5 million, and they'll be equally large like in the next 10 or 15 years. So I was wondering why, it could just be a miss, right? No big deal. I mean, yeah. Next set of questions was around how aware Nikki was about various dining options, like, to the best of your knowledge, does Universal offer kosher options? And then the next question after that was, should Universal offer kosher options? And I thought this area of the survey could be better designed based on what Nikki had said earlier in the survey. So, for example, if you know Universal really well, and you know that there is exactly one place at Universal that offers kosher options, you would answer, yes, I know it's offered, right? But you still want it to be offered in more places, but there was no option for that and no follow-up question about that. So it's like saying, yeah, I know that there are kosher options available. I don't know what you're getting from about that other than the follow-up question should be, and is it in enough places?
That is fascinating about, does it offer or should it offer? So is that a perception versus reality thing, or?
That's what I thought the first part was, but then the should, like, do you know, and then should it? was interesting. I think the wording on that could have been a little bit better.
I get that.
But here's the next interesting thing. And you mentioned the fact that a survey is often created because people know what they want for answers. The last question was along the lines of, if we offered these different foods, in what format would you like to see them offered? Snacks, appetizers, entrees, sides, desserts, drinks, and so on. And I thought this was a great question because even if you're willing to try something new, you may not want to risk a $40 entree on it, but an appetizer or a side is a much more low risk proposition. And, I'd definitely be willing to spend $7 on food that I thought was interesting, but I might not like versus, $45 for an entree.
Welcome to Food and Wine, Len.
Well, you mentioned that because I would not be surprised if Universal's looking at this and saying, we've got something in the fall, but we don't have a spring event to match Flower and Garden.
I suddenly feel like we need to pivot and take a closer look at how Epic Universe is set up, especially that interior area where the land sort of all key off of. I wonder if we look at that, whether or not there's space in there for the Epcot equivalent of Festival Kitchens. Maybe.
Ooh, you think?
Maybe maybe you've actually hit on something here.
So you think that when Bob Iger announced that construction is largely done at Epcot, it's because it moved all over to Epic Universe?
Well, no. To the just to the effect of maybe that's long term. I'd face it. Epic Universe is going to have its challenges largely because when there's a convention in town, that place is going to be full. And at least initially, because of the attractions and the newness, it's going to be full. But further on down the line, just getting people to go over there, that this may be their festival park.
Oh, good point. All right, Jim, we have time for a couple of listener questions. On last week's show, we mentioned that Disney would resume AP sales on April 13th. And on that day, we got an email from our friend John Thompson, who said this: my enthusiasm to get an AP was tempered when I was put in a virtual queue with a wait that, as of this writing, is more than 3 hours. So my question is this: why, God, why? What could be going on to make these waits so long? Putting on my IT guy hat, I can come up with 3 possibilities, but frankly, none of them make sense. One, Disney's throttling the user experience so that servers don't get overloaded. This seems the most likely, but for hours, there can't be that much demand, can there be? I mean, maybe tens of thousands of people, and their servers need hours to process that? Doesn't make sense. The second option is that human intervention is somehow required in the process. This makes the wait seem logical, but why on earth would you put human intervention in this process? And then the third option is, I guess this is really the most likely explanation, processing that many credit card transactions. But still, really, it takes hours to process, maybe at most like 100,000 transactions. All right, so, again, putting on my IT hat, and again, I don't know anything about computers, but it's almost certainly item 1, that it's so the servers don't get overloaded. But it also is a little bit of item 3 for reasons that I think you will find interesting. So my first guess is that Disney doesn't want to write, test, and guarantee the code that would automatically scale its website up and down for sudden short bursts of traffic like annual pass holder sales. It's probably much easier and cheaper to just throttle the incoming traffic. Again, I don't know that much about computers, but that seems like a decent guess. The other guess that John has about fraud or processing credit card transactions is also correct, and I think it is actually fraud. So remember, Jim, that before I did this show, I was director of technical architecture for a major credit card company. So it's pretty easy to find online list of credit card numbers and the corresponding names and billing addresses that go along with those. The thing that's harder to get, Jim, and that's needed for online transaction is the 3 or 4 digit card ID, the SID that's printed on the front or back of your card. However, computing power is cheap, and a 3-digit SID only has 1,000 possible combinations. The numbers 000 through 999. So if you want to commit high dollar fraud on a credit card, the first thing you do is randomly generate like 250 of those 1,000 possible combinations of card ID, and you submit 250 simultaneous requests to buy something like a television or a computer, which gives you a 1 in 4 chance of success. And believe it or not, Jim, there are actually some merchant and credit card systems that cannot detect that sort of simultaneous action with sub-second response time in which they have to get you an answer back to the customer for the sale anyway. So if you're a merchant who sells high dollar things, the last thing you want to do is to ship out a high dollar item and then have to dispute it with the credit card company because it's fraud. Because the very best case that can happen there, Jim, is that you're only out the shipping costs and you eventually get your item back. The worst case is you're out the shipping and the cost. So anyway, so yeah, John, number 3 is also an option there, and I think that's why.
Well, okay, but appreciate the insight there.
Don't try this at home, kids.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Don't do that. All right, Jim. Also on last week's show, which was on the Hollywood Studios history of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Play It. We said at the end of the show, we asked folks who had been in the hot seat to send in their memories of playing the game. And Jim, a surprising number of listeners actually made it into the hot seat.
Wow.
Paul Schneblin wrote in to say, I got my one shot to play in 2002 or 2003. I was so nervous that even the host was sure I was going to pass out from hyperventilating. So I couldn't tell you much about the experience other than I made it to about the 250,000 point level. I managed to win a bunch of prizes, the 1,000 point hat, the 32,000 point polo shirt, along with a pin for each question I got correct. He said at least to the 32,000 point level, if I'd quit before blowing the question, I would have gotten pins up to that level. He says, I wore the shirt to rags, and the pin bag with the pins has been packed away since my last move, but I have it, and I wear the hat, and he even sent in photos
Oh, thank you, Paul.
of wearing the hat. Also, our good friend Joseph Matt got in the hot seat in 2002 at age 14 and sent a photo of him wearing his millionaire hat. James Martin had a great story. He said, on January 1st, 2003, I was in the hot seat and made it to the $1 million question. I don't remember what the question was, but it had something to do with Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. Taliesin West. The answer is always Taliesin West, James. Anyway, I gave what I thought was the correct answer, but unfortunately was wrong. I was pretty disappointed, and so was the audience, but I still got some nice consolation prizes, including a hat that I never wore. After the show, another guest came up to me and told me that I actually provided the correct answer, and that of the 4 choices, 2 were correct answers. He advised me to contact Disney and talk to them, so my wife and I went back to the Wilderness Lodge, and I got on the phone with guest services. After about an hour of transfers, I got in touch with somebody at either Imagineering or Hollywood Studios who's actually able to bring up the tape. And by the way, Jim, did you know they actually recorded those shows?
I did not. Wow. Okay.
Now we know. There we go. So they brought up a tape of me answering the $1 million point question. They asked for my phone number, and later that day, I got a call back from Disney stating I had indeed answered correctly and was entitled to all the prizes. That included multiple pins, the aforementioned baseball cap, a varsity jacket, a big medallion that said $1 million point winner, and most importantly, a trip to see Regis film the show, the actual show in New York City. All right, that's kind of awesome. That's a great story.
That's a great story. So,
also, Andy wrote in to say that one of his biggest disappointments in life was he was the next person to be in the millionaire chair when the episode he was attending reached its time limit and ended.
Oh.
Also, Jim, I know, terrible. Also, Jim, a puzzle from Jeff Clune who says this. We're at Hollywood Studios last week and saw the Beauty and the Beast show. Right before you enter the bleacher seating area, there are several names and dates written into the cement, and one of them is Monty Hall. And I'd been scratching my head trying to figure out why Monty Hall was in Hollywood Studios. Thanks to Jim and this week's podcast, though, the connection has been made with the presentation of Let's Make a Deal in Soundstage 1 in the early 90s. Thanks, guys. P.S. Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island is also there. Any idea why?
I want to say that there was, for a long time at MGM, a Celebrity of the Day program, and literally what would happen is around noon or 1 o'clock, the convertible would roll up the street, and it would be some celebrity from a film or movies who, and the thing is, Disney got them to come out because they'd contact them and say, hey, how would you and your family like a vacation to Walt Disney World? And we just need you for an afternoon to roll through the park, do a handprint ceremony in front of the Chinese theater, and then depending on how popular the celebrity was, they would do a question and answer period with it. So Bob probably was one of the folks who did that, and Disney then ended up with this warehouse full of handprints that they repurposed around the park. So that's probably how Monty Hall and Bob Denver actually ended up in the Beauty and the Beast theater.
So now when you need to replace some concrete at Hollywood Studios, they go out to a warehouse and say, Mary Tyler Moore, here we go.
Gonna put that in front of the churro cart.
My guess, and it was a stretch, was that somehow MGM, back when they were partnered with Disney, MGM owned the syndication rights to Gilligan's Island. That was my guess, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, I'll go take a look at that.
All right. Also, last thing, in last week's show, I mentioned that in English, Words that are both nouns and verbs have, when they're said aloud, stress on different syllables, so they sound different, like record and record. A number of people wrote in to provide exceptions to this rule. So Peter came up with swim and swim. Andy sent in act, and Jason sent in drink and drink. So 2 things. Okay, new rule, amendment, monosyllabic words are an exception. 2, guys, this is why you don't get invited to parties. This is it. Right here. All
so
right.
no drink, and no swim and swim for you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim tells us about the changes Universal's making to its Lost Continent section of Islands of Adventure and what that might mean. We'll be right back.
Do you feel like you need a bit more magic in your life? Why not give Storybook Destinations a try? Storybook Destinations is an authorized Disney vacation planner, and all other counselors who work for this full-service travel agency have received extensive training when it comes to the Disney theme parks, resorts, cruises, vacation packages, and more. These travel professionals have years of experience when it comes to planning customized Disney vacations, which is why you can always book with confidence when it's the Storybook Destination team that's helping you find the vacation of your dreams. Best of all, they offer their booking and planning services at no cost to you. So if you're once again ready to travel, why not learn more about what Storybook Destination has to offer by visiting their website, www.storybookdestinations.com.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton, but where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
And we're back. All right, Jim. Universal announced this week the May 9th closure of the Poseidon's Fury stage show in the Lost Continent section of Islands of Adventure. So Poseidon's Fury is an opening day attraction at IOA. It's had a good run. Lost Continent is, of course, that area between Hogwarts and Seuss Landing, which isn't going anywhere. It has, obviously, Poseidon's Fury, the Mythos restaurant, and then, a gift shop, Treasures of Poseidon?
Yeah. Poseidon's Fury has been up and down over that period, but Mythos,
right?
Every time I go by there, it's got that banner out front, the most popular restaurant.
From 2019?
There we go. So.
Yeah. Jim, I'm betting, though, that the Treasures of Poseidon store, although it's popular, probably does not have the revenue of the Super Mario Brothers movie, which has already done almost $400 million in global box office on its opening weekend and could earn Nintendo itself $1 billion. Do those two things have anything to do with each other?
It'll take a while to get there, but yeah, there could be a Nintendo-related reason why Poseidon's Fury, Escape from the Lost City, is going away. I'm sure you saw that we now have an official close date for Disneyland's version of Splash Mountain. It's May 31st of this year, and in that very same month, we also lose Poseidon's Fury, Escape from the Lost City. That closes on May 9th. And yes, okay, Poseidon's Fury is not as beloved as Splash. I mean, it opened with the rest of IOA back in May of 99, and it's supposedly set in the ruins of the great Lord Poseidon's temple. Now, Splash, what they think of is that 52-foot drop down Chickapin Hill. On the other hand, have you done Poseidon's Fury?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the effects are... the effects and the cheesy acting are the two draws.
Oh, well, there we go. There's two things that are memorable about this attraction. One is the transition from the pre-show to the main theater, and that's where that's that 40-foot long, 18-foot in diameter water vortex that you walk through. And over at the Touring Plans website, you guys have a video up from that shows the actual construction of IOA, and they talk about the 40 nozzles that are set up around the outside of this 18-foot in diameter tunnel, and the way the water goes over your head and doesn't come down on you is, Len, it's shooting out of nozzles at 90 to 100 miles an hour.
If you think about this show, right, and you think about, remember inside the old Twister attraction, they would actually create a miniature tornado in front of guests.
They would.
You know, it's rare for the theme park industry to try and create their own natural disasters right in front of guests. But this, Jim, this is where Universal swings for the fences. And I, for one, applaud it.
You know, well, in fact, I remember going into the Twister attraction and on a tour once, and the guide actually took us over to the door and showed us in the middle of the show when the actual tornado effect is going on inside the building. Yeah. It was so strong you couldn't open the door to get out. Does the word fire codes mean anything to anybody these days?
Again, Jim, do you want to be entertained or do you want to be safe? Because you can have one or the other.
There
we go. Apparently.
All right. Well, look, Islands right from the get-go was a technically ambitious park. I mean, you look no further than the scoops that guests write in over in The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. But the thing that was interesting about Poseidon's Fury is amazing effects, but the story was kind of meh, which is why June of 2001, I mean, this thing hadn't been open more than 2 years at this point. The attraction was shut down and reopened as Poseidon's Fury Escape from the Lost City. And now, instead of an angry Poseidon fighting with his brother Zeus, now it was Poseidon who was the attraction's hero, and he was battling evil Lord Darkanon. And when the best name you can come up with for the villain is Darkanon, it's like, you're not even trying. The other effect I think people remember so much about Poseidon's Fury is the attraction's finale, where, you had that battle between Poseidon and Lord Darkanon going on, 102 different water and fire effects going on. The room gets dark, it fills with fog, and then when the fog lifts, you're back in the antechamber where the attraction began.
Yeah.
And did you ever manage to make it into Star Trek The Experience at the Las Vegas Hilton?
So Laurel and I went there one time and we played game show there as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was quite the experience. But
okay, now if you did Star Trek The Experience, do you remember that moment in the experience where you're in a space where it's basically a Star Trek museum? You're surrounded by props and costumes from the movies and TV shows. Then you hear,
and then Terry Crews comes on and says something's been stolen.
Okay.
And all of a sudden the scene changes. Right.
I mean, you hear transporter effect. You get bright lights come up, and when you can get oriented again, you are standing on the transporter pad of the Enterprise D, and you're actually being hustled out of the room to go to the bridge of the ship. And it's one of these things where, how the hell did I get here? And it turns out that's the exact same effect that was used in Poseidon's Fury. What it basically was is that in the ceiling of the finale room, on a cantilever, is an identical version of the room you just left in the pre-show. And when it gets dark and the room fills with fog, the room comes down around you, the smaller room.
Is that how it works? I thought stuff came up.
So it comes down to the ceiling around you. So and the beauty part of it is that when you go to reset, it just all rises back into the ceiling, waits for the next bunch to come through.
Oh, and the ceiling makes sense because if it came from the floor, you would feel it in your feet.
Go.
Got it. Oh, no, all right. I learned something today.
No, it was a cool effect. And when Poseidon's Fury is gone, we'll all miss that along with the water vortex. But you mentioned at the top of today's show, the other attraction that, frankly, we lost over in Lost Continent during the last 5 years, and that's the 8th Voyage of Sinbad stunt show.
Sinbad.
And that opened with the park in May of 99, and it closed back on September 15, 2018.
Jim, I don't want to tell you how much time I spent researching for the show, whether the name Sindbad, Sindbad, was just an attempt to get around the copyright of Sinbad. Like I spent a good hour on it, like trying to figure out, like, is this some sort of like trademark scheme they're trying to get around? Like, but it turns out that both Sinbad, Sinbad, and then Sindbad are both acceptable spelling in Arabic for the story. So fair.
They were initially shooting with Lost Continent to be authentic. And in fact, what was kind of interesting about Lost Continent is when it opened in May of 99, it was actually 3 mini lands. We start at the bottom of the hill with the Lost City, which is where Poseidon's Fury is located, and that's supposed to be a ruined Greek city that's now the home of the gods of old. Then we move to the middle space, and this is Sinbad's Bazaar, a Middle Eastern place who, frankly, I always stop to watch the fountain in the middle there.
Talking fountain.
Yes, it lures in small children and then drenches them. And then finally, when you got to the top of the hill, you reach Merlin Wood, an area that celebrated the legends of King Arthur in medieval Europe. And folks probably remember the signature attractions here was the dragon challenge, the dueling dragons, the fire dragon and the ice dragon that went simultaneously. There was also the Royal Oak Tavern, the giant stump-shaped building that had the face of Merlin on the exterior.
So I didn't make it over to IOA until after Merlin Wood closed, and I didn't know about this till you sent over the show notes. So that's where Dueling Dragons came from Merlin Wood?
Well, yeah, that it was originally the Dueling Dragons, which then, when it became Potter, was renamed and rethemed as the Dragon Challenge. Also, worth noting that in June of 2000, just after the first anniversary of the opening of IOA, they also opened the Flying Unicorn coaster, which, of course, today we know is the Flying Hippogriff. But, yeah, so, this is how the land existed with the 3 mini lands from the opening till May of 2007, when Universal Parks and Resorts announces that they've entered into this partnership with Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling to create a Harry Potter-themed land in IOA. And so Merlin Wood closes in July of 2008, and they then begin to transform these 20 acres at the top of the hill in Lost Continent into Hogsmeade.
20 acres is actually a decent portion of the entire park, though, right?
Oh, yeah. The IOA total is only 110 acres. And I was talking with Mark Woodbury about when they changed over the Royal Oak Tavern into the Hogshead Tavern. And the 3 broomsticks. And
kitchen remodels are the best, Jim.
This is the thing. Mark told me about how they convinced themselves that they were going to save money. They tore down the Royal Oak Tavern and took the entire kitchen set up there for this quick service restaurant and wrapped it in heavy industrial plastic and then built the Hogshead Tavern and the 3 broomsticks up around the pre-existing kitchen. And in the end, Mark said we were idiots. The pennies we saved, it was so miserable to build around that equipment and then to bring it back online after all of that time. We should have just done the smart thing and flattened it and built a brand new kitchen.
With the experience of age, I have learned 2 things about moving and remodeling. And the first thing is, when you've decided to move, simply sell or throw away all of your possessions and start over in your new place. It is by far the easiest and, in the long term, most satisfactory thing. The second thing is when remodeling, first demolish everything and to start over and build what you want. It is vastly easier and simpler.
I will keep this in mind during spring cleaning.
This hard-won wisdom, Jim. Yes. All right, so now we're building Harry Potter Land.
We're building Harry Potter Land, but in the middle of this, December of 2009, Comcast announces its intention to acquire NBC Universal, parent company of the Universal Parks and Resorts. The park itself opens in June of 2010.
Harry Potter opens in 2010.
Harry Potter opens June of 2010. Okay.
So a few months later, they're doing the takeover.
They are, and it's the discovery period. This is the time where Comcast officials can now officially go through the Universal Parks books and see what's going on. And this is the story as it's been explained to me, Len. Comcast officials learn that the wizarding world of Harry Potter isn't just making money hand over fist. It's actually managed in just 5 months' time, Len, to recover its entire $170 million construction costs just on the sale of butterbeer.
Wow.
And at this point, the Comcast people are like, whatever you want to do with Harry Potter, we are on board with. So December of 2011, Universal Parks announced that they will be making a significant expansion of the Wizarding World in Florida. Likewise, that clones of Hogsmeade will be built at Universal Studios Hollywood as well as Universal Studios Japan. This is after Comcast has officially closed in 51% of the company. So January 2012, suddenly the Jaws attraction closes over at Universal Studios Florida. And we then learn in the subsequent year, well, that's where we're building Diagon Alley. And, we're not only going to build Diagon Alley, we're going to connect the Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley with the Hogwarts Express, and
you know that someone's going through every single attraction and character in the Universal Parks and going, the shark, can we make the shark a wizard? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, we don't need the shark.
Oh, God. So Diagon Alley opens July 8th, 2014.
Some people are still in line, Jim.
They are, though just a week later at Universal Studios Japan, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Hogsmeade opens there. So think about it. You had these two huge Potter-related projects being built, and this is involving the folks at Warner Brothers, Stuart Craig, the art director of the original Harry Potter film. So, I mean, this is a lot of heavy lifting.
He's getting some frequent flyer miles.
That he is. And then 2 years later, April of 2016, Wizarding World opens at Universal Studios Hollywood. Then Universal takes a thing that's making money hand over fist, and it looks at the Dragon Challenge ride, which again is built on the back of, the old Dueling Dragons
Merlin
attraction.
would, apparently. Okay.
Yeah, and It's just like, we can do better. And so they closed down the Dragon Challenge September 4th, 2017. And less than 2 years later, in June of 2019, we get Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure.
So that's less than 1/3 of a Tron.
Yes.
It's only like 47 Scaramucci's. I mean, he's a listener. I'm just saying it's fine. It's fine.
It always fascinates me that the speed at which Universal works. And speaking of which, Hagrid's is barely open 2 months when we learned that Universal Orlando has a third park in the works, Epic Universe.
Yep.
And this park will reportedly feature a third Harry Potter themed land, one that keys off of the Ministry of Magic, which brings us back to the closure of the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad in the Sinbad Bazaar section of Lost Continent. Likewise.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going here, because when you and I were walking through Universal the last time, we thought the Ministry of Magic was going to go in Universal Studios.
We did. And in fact, there was some discussion in the old Wild Wild West stage setup there just at the end of the lagoon that this was what they were going to try to shoehorn it in. But in the end, it was just, determined that there was just not enough room for what they wanted to do. And more to the point, given the scale that the Ministry of Magic is now being built at Epic Universe, it's going to dwarf Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey or for Escape from Gringotts.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I believe it's Alicia Stella who's done a lot of the heavy lifting here. But basically, you're going to be there at the Ministry the day that Dolores Umbridge is coming up for trial for working with Lord Voldemort, and things go sideways while you're in the building. It's going to be an amazing traction. But back now to IOA and the fact that if you think about it, we built our train station so that the Hogwarts Express can bring us from Hogsmeade back to platform, 9 3/4. So there has been a lot of talk, Len, about a Whomping Willow spinner, likewise a Shrieking Shack dark ride that could be built further up on the hillside. So it would extend the footprint of the Wizarding World approximately into where the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad Stunt Theater is located. But the thing I think that's a little more interesting is what supposedly is being considered for the area where Poseidon's Fury is located. And that brings us back to Nintendo. Do you remember when they were initially talking about Super Nintendo World being built over at Universal Studios Florida? In fact, they
in the kids section.
That's right. And there's a Mario Kart ride there, was a Donkey Kong, And there was also going to be a Legend of Zelda attraction. And what appears to be happening now is, of course, the Mario Kart stuff is going into Epic Universe, but it would appear there are some very serious discussions about a Legend of Zelda attraction occupying the space that now we know for Poseidon's Fury, The Lost City. Again, you just talked about the box office that the Super Mario Brothers movie did over its opening weekend worldwide, over $400 million. And Universal signed a contract with these folks back in 2015, 2016 to start bringing these things into the park. And the whole notion is, well, where would a Legend of Zelda best fit in the pre-existing Universal properties? And it's like, hey, look at Lost Continent.
What's the backstory of Zelda?
It's an adventure game with sort of magic medieval theming, Len.
Because it's been around forever. I think the first one came out like when I was in high school.
Oh God, yeah. But it's everything you want. The swordplay, the like, and it just it would be a wonderful fit for this section of the park. Now, the question, of course, is what happens with Mythos, and that's still a hugely popular restaurant at this park with a wonderful view of the lagoon there. But when you think about, for example, what's going on with Production Central right now, where you have Villain Con being built right across from Despicable Me Minion Mayhem, which will now be just up the road from the Minion restaurant, and then, of course, the whole DreamWorks area that's going into the old kids area, they're leaning in to developing specific sections that celebrate specific, franchises and sets of characters.
I guess the question I would have is, would you put all the Nintendo stuff in Epic Universe except for Zelda?
As of right now, all we know that's going into Epic Universe is the Mario Kart. Much of the stuff that we saw out in California during our visit, I have heard there might be an expansion pad there, that the Donkey Kong attraction that's also rumored for Universal Hollywood could be built there. But at the same time, in much the same way as Potter is a strong presence in Islands, in Universal Studios Florida, and soon to be in Epic Universe. And if you're trying to drive people into your each of your three parks in Florida, long range, it probably makes sense that each of those parks has its own Nintendo ride, or Nintendo Land.
That's really interesting. So every park would have similar franchises, just different takes.
There we go. On
the stories. Oh, interesting. Huh. All right, that makes sense. All right, we'll see what happens there. That's but I think this was a mildly surprising announcement, and they can go a number of ways.
Oh, no, definitely.
Here, so
definitely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which way they go. All right, cool. Good job, Jim.
Just have been watching this space since the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad closed back in 2018, and it looks like the chess pieces are moving in a very distinct direction. So.
Oh, good. All right, excited to see what happens there. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show and Jim Hill Media by subscribing over at disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes. So Jim and I just mentioned we were out in Disneyland and Universal Studios with Imagineer Jim Scholl, and we did a couple of tours of Disneyland and Universal Studios there. And then Jim and I walked around Walt Disney World 2 weekends ago, Jim, right?
We did. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And all of those shows are available over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. On next week's show, we're going to talk about a bunch of things, including some new advice I have on how to tour Hollywood studios without paying for Genie Plus. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. We're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who will be in conversation with Hakeem Bellamy, poet laureate of the city of Albuquerque, on Bellamy's book Commissions y Corridos, on Saturday, May 20th, 2023, at the Santa Fe International Literary Festival in the Santa Fe Community Convention Center on Marcy Street in beautiful downtown Santa Fe, New Mexico. While Aaron's doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.